Welcome to playoff edition of Caps and Cards. I'm your host, Spidey, and I am joined today by Take it
TJ
away.
here, North Shore Fitteds. We're going to be talking about the playoff games so far. The ultimate one hasn't started yet. Sunday tonight, the nightcap game for Green Bay and the Lions with the possibly Rogers' last football game in Green Bay or in the NFL. It's going to be exciting. I can't wait to see it. We're going to talk about the Bills and how the seedings have worked out, stuff like that.
Yeah, we just we got some buzzing topics and we started talking for like 20 minutes here and you know, we just got a tape because every time we start talking, we just start getting into the percentages and all the details about the playoffs and what percentage teams have. And right now, Green Bay is at like 3% to even get in the playoffs. And I've got a whole chart and everything that we had set up for that. But I'm going to read it off my phone so that we can kind of fly through this and cover all the topics that we wanted to talk about today. And first and foremost, I got my hoodie with our logo on it. So obviously matches my Buffalo. It's got the Zuba guy on there. TJ at some point will have his. This came from Crowns and Kicks over shout out to Paul Rodriguez out in Colorado. Hopefully I got that Air Allen cap that I designed coming as well. And I do have one for I guess for Graham now. Because he was asking me about the show. So I got one in red of these on the red heather. And that'll be cool. So I'm glad that we got that knocked out. Kind of wish these had either like the CC or something. I'll start sharing some more bets maybe. And there's just a lot more things that I want to cover, especially like the OV chase. And, we got to get to 894, the great one and the great eight, and we gotta talk about football here. So TJ, take us away.
I'd like to say first and foremost, as a Patriots fan, even though I'm wearing my Kelly jersey with the 75th patch, I'm wearing the Kong, the silverback from Glinkram, and I'd just like to say, as a Patriot fan, I was pleasantly surprised by the game Mac Jones put on. I had low expectations before this game. I figured it'd be a blowout, especially after the Damar Hamlin situation with the Bills being so emotional. I think that kind of got to them a little bit in pre-planning. I think Miami's going to get blown out in the first round against Buffalo. I just
Yeah,
like it was a incredible game to watch. It's like all those moves your GM made were like the perfect moves, like that free safety you guys got that no one thought was anything, which is like a safety move. He was a key part in that game. I'd like to say point out a few players that are retiring: Jason McCourty, Matthew Slater,
well, I thought it was Devin McCourty. Oops.
or it was probably Devin McCourty. His brother, I think, retired last year, but Devin McCourty and Matthew Slater are retiring from Patriots. That was the last game in the New England uniform and in football in general. And J.J. Watt is currently playing his last game.
Yeah, so I did see for the Broncos game at 4:30. So that's why I was taking a couple extra minutes here. I wanted to finish watching one of the early hockey games, and then we had the right now the Caps are on. So again, I'm following Ovechkin every chance I can get. And that's why I keep turning my head because every time I hear Ovechkin, my head just goes.
What he already passed Gordie Howe. The last one he has left is Wayne Gretzky, correct?
That's
I
it.
don't
Yep.
I don't think the mass media and everything will get onto that till he gets around 850, which will probably be around next season. Maybe towards the end of this season if he keeps the deflection goals and they keep feeding him the puck. But it is a very great accomplishment. To think that he did it in so many seasons that were shortened, and then there was a lockout seasons where he didn't get to play at all. He probably would have already broken it if he played full seasons throughout his career.
So I don't have the whole math here, but I've got this little chart here. You can't see the team names, but Green Bay is on the bottom here, and they currently have a 67% chance to make the playoffs, a 0% chance to win the division because of the Vikings, and a 0% chance to earn the number one seed. And the Lions still have a 17.6% chance to make the playoffs. And however the Seahawks shake out, they have a 15.4% chance to make playoffs. And they're all dependent on the other teams losing to each other.
So it's cold game, Lambeau Field, home game. The Lions are an indoor team. It's going to be a tough game. Dan Campbell's got his guys. He said that before the game. He goes, "I want to be the spoiler if we can't make it in." That's the main thing in that locker room. They want to spoil it. But Rodgers has run the table before, and I'm pretty confident they can do it again. Everybody thought he was crazy a couple years ago, and they ended up making the NFC Championship game and losing to Atlanta that year when they were way down. They were below 500, and he goes, "We need to run the table the rest of the way" in the interview, and then they did it. Then it was that game against the Giants there, where they had the Hail Mary. They were down at halftime, and then eventually they kicked the Cowboys, and then Matt Ryan and that offense blew them out, and then you know what happened with the Falcons there. 23.
I was like, I'm getting PTSD. It's almost
Matt
March
Ryan.
28th.
Matt Ryan now holds the record for the biggest deficit lot, the biggest lead blown in a postseason game and the regular season game in NFL history.
Well, I'd like to thank the Vikings for their contribution in that turnaround. It was 35 points or 33 that they turned around and came back on.
And that was the Minnesota Vikings. I don't think will do anything in the playoffs. They're frauds. You can tell because last week Green Bay put the clinic on them, and they
Yeah,
kind of
that's the second they get into Lambeau during the playoffs, it's a totally different experience. They shut down those opposing fans from coming in, and I can tell you that is a different beast.
well, any playoff game they play against them will be in Minnesota, but I think the number one factor for them is going to be they're an indoor stadium and they're a dome practice facility. So if they play anywhere where it's cold, it's going to bother them.
Ovi just got robbed by Merzinklis, like one of those sprawled out on his chest, glove out with like half a second to go. And I gotta say, I've never loved Columbus so much.
Well,
Sponsored by FanDuel.
they're just tanking for Bedard there. And I'd like to say the Canadians World Junior team definitely deserved it. Bedard's a special player. It's going to be really interesting to see what team gets him and what happens.
So the top 10 teams that have the most picks, it's gonna be like Montreal, Ottawa, and your bottom feeders like Arizona, Edmonton somehow still.
And I think that him wherever he gets drafted might influence Austin Matthews' decision if he does choose to leave the Maple Leafs at this offseason, which it does look like he is. A lot of Coyotes fans are getting all excited because they think they're going to get the pick and draft Bedard, and Austin Matthews is going to come home to Arizona. But even if they were to get Bedard, I don't think Matthews would go there.
I don't think Bedard would sign there.
That's a whole nother issue too. He can choose not to sign with whoever drafts him. You can do like an Elway situation.
I don't know if we've ever encountered that in hockey, though. Not like the same way.
It would just be kind of interesting. I don't know what assets you would give up if a player is not going to sign to a certain franchise if he chooses to get traded somewhere. The closest thing you would have to that is when Gretzky got to pick where he went when they traded him.
Well, we're kind of experiencing that with Shane Wright right now. He was the number one pick last year, and he went to the Kraken. 1 or 2, something like that. And it was another Hughes brother, so Quinn, Jack, and There's one on the Canucks too, I think. It's Devils, Canucks.
Yeah, the three brothers, the Hughes brothers.
Yeah. And they're they could break the Sedin's record for most points, but I don't see them ever touching the Gretzky brothers. Yeah, Brent with all 3 points combined for a total of like 2,600 for the Gretzky's, and the Sedins totaled out at 2,200.
Oh, the Canucks fans were all excited about possibly getting Bedard because he's from there.
You know,
It would
the
be
the
too perfect.
Canucks really need a boost right now.
It'd be too perfect of a situation for that to work out.
I'm not saying it hasn't happened before, but tell me there wasn't another time where a really touted player like this went to a Canadian franchise where Bettman didn't try to save the league and gave us the American player.
I'd say it worked out in the end for y'all. If you guys had McDavid, I don't think you I don't think you would have been the same caliber of player in your guys' offense. Although who knows who you guys would have drafted the following years. But as the team stands now, where you guys got a haul for Eichel, I'd say you guys won in the end because McDavid hasn't done squat as far as postseason. And you guys are trending more towards the postseason now with the assets you've gotten from Eichel. If you guys can get a decent goaltender, you'll probably be at least a playoff.
Go look at that Calgary series from last year and go look at how many goals and points he had in just that series. And he looks like Bedard in the World Juniors with 30 points in 7 games.
You know what I'm saying? As far as like rather than winning playoff series, like going to a Stanley Cup and contending, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I mean they were this close in the semis. I mean, they were looking good in that Battle of Alberta. The Flames and Oilers is always a great matchup, and this year it's been so disappointing. A couple 2-1 games and 2-0 game. You you just kind of expect those games to be really rough, really high scoring, and kind of bring out the classic hockey style. And we haven't seen any of that from at least those two teams so far. So I'm really kind of hoping that like Ottawa or somebody shakes it up for everybody.
I'd just like to say that the Bruins keep rolling. They've been steamroller. We're rolling through the Pacific right now, win after win. Hopefully, we can beat the Ducks tonight and keep the point streak going.
I don't see why they shouldn't. And
Even even when we lose, like we haven't lost in regulation this year at home, which is crazy to think about. We're the second fastest team to 30 wins in NHL history.
all right, here's the keys to tonight's game about the Ducks. The best team to get shut out by the Ducks in the past week was the Stars, but they have like 8 or 9 losses, but they have competitive losses to Colorado, LA, decent teams that I don't think when you look at the bottom half of the Eastern Conference, those teams are not scoring goals. Like Columbus is not putting up 6, 7, 8 goals on you.
The biggest thing with the Bruins, though, is we have so many lightning rods. Like we have Martian, we have Trent Frederick, who's been transcendent this year, which is hilarious to think about because he was just a role player a couple years ago. He wasn't an AHL guy a year before that, where he kept going bouncing up back and forth from Providence, where he's been such a big factor this year. It's like this team reminds me so much of that 2011 team because the Bruins actually had balls. Like back in 2011, we had Milan Lucic and Chara, where no one wanted to fuck with us on the ice. No one wants to fuck with us on the ice now because we had Trent Frederick.
Speaking of balls,
Yeah, you guys are 6-0 in those units. You guys should make them your regular unit.
7.
I'd like to say you guys might have retired Fleury. Fleury stepped away from the Wild. He said he's not playing the best type of hockey. He has some other personal stuff going on. He's not. The Wild aren't sure when he'll even rejoin the team. So
That's a real kick in the ass for a guy that I've loved watching over the past, like, I gotta say 20 years. I've been watching Fleury like everywhere. Him and Crosby and Malkin, just like that trio was just so
well,
huge in my childhood, especially when I was playing.
the
Those
2000
guys were amazing to
either
watch.
you were either a Sidney Crosby guy or an Ovechkin guy. There's like two by divergent trees.
I'm Team Crosby, but now that Ovi's chasing 894, it's kind of hard to not root for him.
I've always liked Ovi. The only thing I don't respect in Sidney Crosby's game, as far as that he won't drop the gloves.
Oh yeah, he will. But he's been rocked a few times. He's had his jaw broken, open ice.
For the most part, he chooses not to fight. He'll start to instigate stuff. He plays that Marchand intimidator role. The only thing that's been incredible about him, though, is the goal scoring capability. It's been kind of interesting to see the Penguins where they're at currently in the NHL, where they're like mid tier. They're not. They haven't been dominant. They haven't been their usual selves, and they still have everybody. That's the crazy thing. There's not like a mass amount of injuries. It was just from the beginning of the season they had a rough start.
The hardest part about the Penguins for me is that Letang was diagnosed with like cancer or something, and or he had a stroke, and then like he was seen out skating, and then he played a game like a couple weeks ago.
He had a stroke before the game, and then he came back a couple weeks later and played, which is insane. But hockey players in general are a different breed rather than other sports where the injuries and everything are crazy. Like I remember that Stanley Cup against the Blues that the Bruins lost. Chara broke his jaw blocking a puck and had it wired shut and played through to the Stanley Cup. There's not many other sports where a guy would be willing to drink his food to try to win a championship who had already won a championship.
We were discussing something like that at work today, and I put I I had to lay out the base rules for it. I said, we have to, because the Bills get brought up every morning now, and everybody's like, DeMar, and then I put up a three, and I'm like, besides him, we have to talk about the players in hockey that, like, Jacques Plant used to put a scar every time he got hit on the face. He would take a Sharpie marker and draw the scar where it hit him. Which,
Did you hear about the player on the Jets recently? The news from the last night.
the ruptured he ruptured his nuts blocking a shot.
Yeah, he was still wearing a cup and everything too.
I think that was Blake Wheeler.
Yeah, I know his last name was Wheeler.
Yeah. Blake or Zach Wheeler, yeah. And I remember there was a guy in the 70s had a fucking heart attack in the first period, and they took him to the back in the locker room, and he asked the trainer, "When are you going to clear me to go back out there?" And the doctor's like, "I'm not." And he's like, "The fuck you aren't." And he got back out there.
Even a more recent example, like Vander Kane, this beginning of the season, he didn't come back to play, but he slit his wrist where he could have had a major issue. Just walked off the ice like it was nothing.
Or I was at the game where Bertuzzi got his throat cut. It was more like a side angle, but he only missed this by, like, we're talking quarter inch from his jugular. I remember, I think it was the Bruins where like Krug or Marchand had like a punctured lung, and
After they lost the 28 Cup run, the Bruins, in response, published their injury report that they didn't disclose to the public before that game. Multiple players had bruised ribs. Multiple players had other issues. I remember Bergeron had a separated shoulder and was still playing through to try to win another cup. I'd love for this year for us to break that curse of the President's Trophy and somehow win the Stanley Cup and win this President's Trophy, purely because this is probably Bergeron's last year. he has stated that he will continue to play possibly, depending on how his body is after this year. If they're still decent, which is a possibility. But
that's when you start getting into that age threshold.
people have been pretty critical of his game so far this year because he hasn't been his usual self where he brings in the puck. He's been more of that OV role where he hangs around the net waiting for the deflection goals. But at the same time, the Bruins have such a stacked roster where it's not that much of an issue because he's on a line with David Pastrnak and Marchand, or he's on a line with Forbat and Marchand. I love the new head coach we got, Montgomery, who has a checkered past. He lost his head coaching position prior to alcohol abuse.
Well, do you remember it was it the New Year's game? Yeah, 12/31 it was. Last game before the new year, and you were talking all this shit saying that the Bruins are gonna pound the piss out of the Sabres, and I'm like, it's all about what jerseys we wear, man. It's all about what jerseys we wear. Nothing else matters.
Like some bullshit because they started Swayman instead of Olmark.
And
if you had reached me a year ago and said that Olmark was going to be our number one goaltender, I would have said you're smoking crack. Somehow he's an all-star and the best goaltender in the NHL who's playing his nuts off. The tandem we have is insane. The chemistry of this team is there too. Like Olmark and Swayman aren't even competing. They're happy for each other whenever they win. They hug at the side. They hug on the ice whenever they after a win.
If you were a little more like my size, I still have an Olmark from the Navy days, but I bought the white because it was crispy. It's a Reebok Edge, authentic.
No, it's just incredible to think a guy who we signed as a vet, just to like back up our goaltender had this sudden career renaissance. It's very similar to Tim Thomas in a lot of ways because Tim Thomas was a career guy that was an AHL guy. He finally got his big start in the Bruins, and then when we traded Raycroft, and it was like the light switch snapped. It's really incredible to be a Boston sports fan. We always at least have one team who's competing for a championship.
Well, we noticed that with Enroth because he was smaller. He was like a 5'8", 5'9" kind of guy, and Olmark is like 6'2", 6'3". He just, I don't know, when you get pelted with 55 shots per game because you got Zach Bogosian, who every season he's like the community leader in donations and street hockey tournaments and crap because he was never on the ice. But like when you got guys like that playing defense in front of you, it's pretty easy to tell that they're not happy here.
Like I'd say, the only thing the Sabres are missing with their current roster, they can score goals, is a decent goaltender. If they can get some type of veteran goaltender at the trade deadline, or next year sign somebody. The only thing you got to be careful with that is you don't want to be like an Oilers situation where you're paying Jack Campbell X amount. I think he has like an insane contract where it's like he's owed like $10 million a year, and he's not even the starting goaltender in the AHL right now.
Oh, you mean Mike Smith or?
He was the former Leafs goaltender, and now he signed with Edmonton for a bunch of money, and now he was a turnstile, and now Edmonton has their AHL goaltender as their starter. And Jack Campbell's been fighting for minutes in the AHL currently because he's still a revolving door.
Well, Mike Smith was too.
They signed him to like a till 27 or 28 season, where they can't just drop him because they'll have that cap hit till then.
Well, you remember when the Sabres were cutting Evander Kane, and he ended up on this club here.
San Jose.
Ontario, California, Reign. They loaned him to the Reign. they like wanted him. He led them to the Calder Cup and like they won it, I think. It was so stupid.
His game's built so much on physicality where it's hard to, or a club like the Sabres, like they couldn't appreciate his game because you needed someone who was a goal scorer, and they thought that's what they were getting when they got him. Someone who can put the puck in the net and had that finesse, like the modern style of hockey. But you're getting a guy who's a mix of both. He can be that finesse guy, but he's more the guy that's going to back those guys up and be like, "Don't fuck with McDavid. Don't fuck with."
Yeah, but he's on the Sharks now, so it's Hurdle and
Now, now he's on the. Evander Kane is injured. He was on the Oilers.
no, I don't know.
But it's just very interesting to see with all these different things with players. Like I said, the injury thing, especially the NFL world was shocked. The trainer should get some type of medal for what he did. The Bills trainer. I love what the Bills did. They recognized the training staff because the training staff is what kept them alive till they got the AEG.
You know that what they say about if you're gonna have a heart attack or where your heart stops, the best place to be is in an NFL stadium or like a major sports stadium. And that would have been the best place in the world, Cincinnati.
And the craziest thing was that the lowest paid person in that stadium had the most important job, the ambulance drivers that took him to the hospital.
And thankfully they were only like a mile and a half away from
I know they had trouble today trying to get him a stream for the Bills Patriots game.
Yeah, he apparently made like a phone call, but
it's very telling for a guy that says the first thing he says after getting knocked out being a medical coma was who won.
And they said you did.
It's such an incredible thing too, was that he's like a lot of the quotes he has, he's such a locker room guy. I can feel from the quotes he had where he's like, I want to make every day show a little bit of love because the world needs love type of thing. And I was so happy to see the outpouring of the NFL community and NFL fans into his charity toy drive, which is an incredible thing to see.
Oh, I don't know if I sent it to you, but Gronk donated $6,900 and he missed
another funny
the opportunity to do 69.69.
Another funny thing was a plumbing and flooring company sent more money than the Washington organization.
Yeah, they wrote Washington football, and then Chris Jericho, and then he was like, "Wait, I spelled my name wrong," and then he donated another $5,000.
I know Tom Brady donated $10,000 to it. It's just incredible to see the NFL community just rally around, and the fans there. When everything happened, the fans are still in the stands, and they were leading in prayer for him. A lot of it was just a routine hit. It was like a 1 in a million hit, like perfect storm type of thing. It's just crazy to see, and it's very positive to see how humanity's reacted. I do like how the NFL has handled it so far. You're not going to make everybody happy as far as the rules, as the things they made it not picking up the game, but they can't really pick up the game because of the 17th game. It kind of screwed you guys out of maybe getting the number one seat, but with the neutral site thing, I think it's a pretty fair solution given the situation.
Now I'm kind of forgetting, but like it was such a moment because like being in like emergency services and being a first responder like that. I've been in situations where I haven't had to use an AED, but I've done CPR before, and it was just pretty crazy that it started hitting me almost the same where I'd turn on the radio and I'm just like, I can't listen to this right now.
I think it was like millions of Americans turned on to what they think was going to be the game was hyped up to be one of the games of the year of Monday Night Football. Two explosive offenses with Joe Burrow and the Bengals and Josh Allen and the Bills. and it was just an incredible thing to see this happen, and then see the reaction from people where like the world came to a halt. Everybody was pulling for him, and thankfully he somehow by a miracle didn't have any brain damage or anything like that. He's up and talking and walking. It's just incredible to think with modern medicine. I know, for example, Boston has some of the best doctors in the world.
Just from like what I heard and read, they say that this guy like writes the journals and like puts out like he's the one that when you go to conventions, he's the one that like speaks in front of the whole crowd of doctors, and his name is the one that's published all these books and articles and all the stuff that doctors learn from.
And I like to see another thing. Fanatics said today. Fanatics in the NFL shop said today. All the Hamlin jerseys they've sold, which is the number one jersey sold this year in the NFL. All that money is going towards charity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's I like
Yeah.
that. And there, you remember who was it? Was it Burdines or fucking who did that suicide hat? Do you remember?
It was one of the Chicago shops. I think it was Bernines.
What? So they put out the suicide hat, like a suicide prevention hat.
Yeah, the semicolon hat, and then it did.
The semicolon means my life is not over, and
They met. They led it to they led to believe that they were going to donate money, and they didn't. Then me and John got them, and they ended up donating. Right?
I don't think that they did. I got really pissy with them over Instagram, and I sent them like a whole, oh, I'm sorry. I thought you guys were going to be decent fucking human beings, not scumbags.
Like I said, there's some things bigger than profit and money, sports. Like at the end of the day, they're all entertainers. They're just someone to entertain you.
You know, that's kind of the message today is not really
It
about
just be human, be understanding, love your family, love your friends.
now here's an argument. Coach of the year. Now you can say it was Dable because he turned around the Giants from a 2 or 3 win team, 3-13. You could also say that it was Doug Peterson with the Jaguars, 2-14, 15. But I gotta give my honorable mention to McDermott. We
Mike,
had the shooting downtown, and the players went and expressed their concerns and condolences. We had this. We had just too much. You know, we had the winter storm where people came together to go get the players out, and
they said before the game today, 40 people died in your county.
actually that number's going up still.
Well, that's what they call Buffalo, the city of good neighbors, right? Because you guys all help each other out. That's something you have to do in that region, just because of the storms you guys get are crazy.
So yeah, I mean my vote is still with McDermott for being able to make that call on not playing the game.
I'd
And
say my pick for coach of the year would probably be Zach Taylor and Sean McDermott as co-head coaches, because the NFL was pushing them to play that game after Hamlin they wanted a 5-minute delay and they wanted to play. Sean McDermott and Zach Taylor looked away at the NFL and said, "We're not playing today. We want to go to the hospital. We want to make sure that player is okay before we even proceed with maybe going on with this game."
I'm getting chills like talking about this. I mean, I've been in
It's like an incredible thing. What it was like, I would compare it to like it's an act of humanity. Like the last like version of that would be like, I know an example. For example, it's not comparative, but it's like during World War One, the Christmas truce, where the Germans and the English. It was Christmas Eve the first year. All these men had been away from home probably, and they came together on Christmas Day to have a truce. It's just like where humanity wins over, like this, like impeccable thing. Like,
Yeah, it's just kind of.
like I said, everybody was waiting to hear what happened and what they were in the same boat. I know Stephon Diggs left the stadium and took an Uber to the hospital, and he was held up by security. He goes, "That's my fucking teammate. Let me in there."
Yeah, and
That's
a beat reporter had to vouch for him.
It shows you like his character and like there's a game beyond football.
Yeah, that was pretty important for
This
like.
seems this seems like it's Super Bowl or bust for the Bills just because this situation happened. They all come together, and not only that, the whole NFL community in general is bounced around them. I think most fans are rooting. If you're as long as you're not a Kansas City fan, I think you're at least rooting for them to make the Super Bowl this year.
Well, now I don't even remember if I talked about it, but Russell Wilson went out there for the coin toss against the other team's number 3, and they both knelt down and said a prayer, and that was pretty cool. And
Like,
then
I
there
know
was a
Ted.
player on the Patriots, I think even he had a number 3 on. He lifted his jersey up and it said "Pray for Damar."
NFL allowed them to wear for warm ups the Nike branded I love it was like I think it said I love Damar and
Pray
then
for.
pray for Damar. I personally like the t-shirts that Ted Cassis, who was the center for the Bengals game, where it had his number 51 and had number 3 on it, which was pretty cool. And they gave them to some of the NFL staff. I'd like to see those at least come up for retail. It's not, the only cold thing about that is you want to know where the money's going from those because they're selling like talking about.
Yeah, so I mean, I'm gonna look up. We have a store called the 716 or the Buffalo store, the BFLO. So I know those will go to the right place. So if we're trying to support something like that and you want to be a part of it, let me know. I'll try and get them out to whoever wants them. I'm not upcharging anybody. I don't care what you've heard about me. I do not do that. All I want is, enough for a cup of Tim's. That's all I've ever asked for. That's all I ever want.
Like I said, it's just an incredible situation, and I'm just excited for some playoff football. And I think it's going to be pretty interesting in the AFC and in the NFC as well.
Yeah. This was definitely kind of some tough shit to digest, and I know I've been milling it over
I
again.
even certain I know certain people have been reacting to like Shannon Sharp, for example, has not been on the Skip Bayless show because he tweeted that night. Skip Bayless tweeted that night they should have resumed the game, and Shannon Sharp was like, "I'm not having that." He hasn't even showed up in the studio,
And I
and
commend him for that.
a bunch of people were calling for Skip Bayless to be fired.
And he probably should be.
Personally, I think he should have been fired after the Father Time thing with Brady, but that was like when they won the Super Bowl against Seattle before they won the Super Bowl against Seattle, where he went the whole Father Time rant with Brady. Oh, Father
Right.
Time, come on. Little humor. I'm just trying to make it a little bit lighter for our audience. But
Yeah, so
like I
we
said, it's
got
pretty exciting because a lot of young quarterbacks making the playoff this year. You got Herbert making his debut. You have Lamar Jackson who's back in. Just going to be.
I gotta peep the hockey scoreboard real fast.
It's going to be pretty exciting to see.
I even though there's NFL playoffs coming on, I am still in full hockey mode.
I'm at the point where I look at the Bruins. Them playing on the West Coast and playing so late now, it's hard to look up the score. I always look at the box score the next morning, and I'm like,
Yeah,
oh,
they're on the West Coast, so I could definitely agree with that.
how much we win by? Oh, we won by that much. Okay, who got the goals?
Yeah. So
I'm sad
the
to say I missed that fight against the Sharks with Trent Frederick and
the
Lemieux.
Bruins play at 8:30 today.
Yeah, it's not too bad because it's a Sunday, so they play earlier.
Yeah, that would be a 5:30 face off.
Yeah,
So
because yeah,
that's
hours.
not too bad. I am gonna show off the rest of these AHL cappers. So these are all from Flagship Buffalo New Era. This is the Ontario Reign again, and they all have the same AHL. There it
Those
is.
are nice because they actually have the AHL logo on the back. Whenever they
And a
like,
baby blue.
whenever they do the NHL hats, even if it's a team store, they can't put the NHL logo on the back, so they have to put the team thing on the back. That's a nice thing about those.
This would be the Manitoba Moose with a
I like the
purple.
affiliated with the Ducks. I'm just guessing based on the colorway.
This team,
Yeah.
Jets.
Hmm. I know the Americans are a part of the Rangers, correct? No.
Rochester. You know where Rochester is?
Yeah, it's right there. You guys past Syracuse, correct?
Nope,
I think they're
not past
famous.
Syracuse. This
They're
is
right.
this is also the Meese.
I know
Uh,
they're famous. I know Rochester's
this
famous.
this is this is like the native style logo when they do Native American night.
That's pretty cool. It's kind of like a Wahoo kind of thing.
Except they do it more like indigenous. I'm gonna say it wrong.
Indigenous.
Indigenous people style. That's what this is supposed to be. But they did actually wear that. Manitoba is the Jets though, and then we got this one is the Admirals. See if you can tell
Yeah,
me,
that's been done different a few times. I Hat
but
Club did
it's
times.
white, so it's kind of weird.
I just look at that hat and I'm like, I cringe when you're touching the bottom of that brim because I'm like, I would just get it so dirty so quick.
Yeah, you know,
I do like white front crowns on hats, but I always regret buying them because something happens like a blade of grass.
what do these two teams have in common besides the fact that they're about 60 miles apart from each other?
Their affiliation makes sense. The problem is with like a lot of minor league teams, like for example in baseball, a lot of like the double A and single A clubs make no sense. Like the Hartford Yard Goats are affiliated with the Colorado Rockies.
It does make sense because what goes on mountains?
Goats. But no, just like the distance thing, because like the Red Sox, you're all in that little sphere. Like you have double A team up in Maine, a single A team. You know what I'm
Let
talking
me
about?
allow me to debunk that. The Yard Goats, even in their previous existence, had the highest attendance in their league for like 10 years. So that was only the reasonable thing was to keep them there to have exposure to Colorado. Because I guarantee you that neither of us can name, I mean, other than the fact that I ripped Bowman product, I don't think either of us could name 3 Rockies. Not even 2, really.
Not on their current roster, no. Ever since they kind of imploded. John Gray is a pitcher, I know that.
And Charlie Blackman. And then we would say, okay, well, it's the Brewers playing the Rockies, and who the fuck is on that team?
Who? Oh, they have that closer that was on the Red Sox there, the guy that got the yips. You know what I'm thinking about? Daniel Bard?
Oh yeah, yeah. He came back. He was like 40 something
Yeah, he signed an extension too with the Rockies.
because he reminds me of that movie The Rookie.
No, the only reason I know that is because on the radio they were making fun of it when they signed him here.
Man,
Yeah.
I swear he played here before too.
He bounced around the league a little bit in the minors, I think. After that, I know he played some ball in Korea too.
And I got this one last week.
Nice. That's the
And
wonderful thing about Noble North is if you miss on a hat, he's gonna re-release in a different colorway.
see, that's the thing though. I was talking to Ryan about his.
It makes
Uh,
it more exclusive with his drops. Where if you get the OG one, like I have the OG Sasquatch right here.
you got the OG, and I had to get like. So you, if you have the black, I have the navy.
I have the black, and then he does it in the navy and everything like that. And then
He's like, I'll do it in a shade close, but I'm not going to do it exactly.
I just like that because it also, I think it incentivizes people like me that have this one to buy that one if I was going to buy another cap if I like this logo. That's why
Yeah.
he does it. And it also makes these more exclusive where it's harder to get, said this one than another one.
Yeah, I mean, I like it, but it's also like another one of our favorite places, the Clink Room.
Yeah, you don't do the pre-order and wait, you're kind of screwed.
And look at that back logo. Like that is just next level. The two pencils and the skull, like it's X-ray style.
Like I
This
said, I have
is-
some fun ideas from fishing that I want to try to make some.
I've got a couple hats I gotta send you because like I didn't realize how big they were. The Stockton ports. It's just a big old anchor.
No, I just have some designs I think I could make that would be really interesting. A lot of them I don't think would be made into a clink. I had an idea with where a boat would be on the front and a net was gonna wrap around, and then there'd be fish on the back panel here.
We can't give all our secrets away.
No, I just think it'd be a cool design like for
One
it.
of our many viewers may steal that idea.
I don't think so because I don't think Clink's never done anything where it's just they usually just do the front logo. There's not really been a lot of, like embroidery on the sides and stuff on them.
I don't want to pull it out, but it was like the trident or something from the Hat Club Hockey League where it had the wave coming through it.
No, I just think there's a lot of interesting designs you could do.
I gotta pull it out now because now I'm like, fuck, I can't remember. Thankfully, I've got these right here.
Or I'd just like to see like some interesting design ideas, and it'd be I say this is the year of the designer. There's a lot of people that are wanting getting into designing hats in the community.
This was from Hillside.
That one's cool. The trireme.
Yeah, but like, look at you can't even see it.
Like the book I'm currently reading is on whaling.
Yeah, but TJ, look at the.
Ooh, I didn't know that. That's actually kind of interesting. Because that's so subtle, you wouldn't know it until you walked up to the person.
That's how sick this hat is.
It's like the subtle elements that designers bring into that makes the stuff pretty cool. The Hat Club
Hillside. See, that's what I really like. Hillside. I don't like who he's currently working with, but he is fucking dope.
but the
All because of this reason.
like I said, the Hat Club Hockey League has a lot of gems that sat that people didn't want to buy.
I don't know why. I wanted all three sets.
Like that Columbus, the Union guy, the Columbus one, really cool too. I didn't get. I only got the skate one. I think that one was also Hillside's goods.
This was McCarthy.
Yeah, that's the one I was talking about. It's like a Civil War guy.
And the skate one.
That would be really that hat would be really cool. The Columbus Blue Jackets jersey with the cannon on the front.
That's exactly what I was getting at.
Like I said, it's always interesting to wear different hats or jerseys that aren't affiliated with the sports team because you always get those weird looks. Like,
Yeah, this is also Hillside Goods.
That's
this was called the Commons.
Yeah, that's based on Boston Common, which has a big skating rink in it.
And
I have
obviously the Terriers.
Yeah, that's the one I wanted, but I didn't get. I wasn't able to hit on. Then that resales for like 90, 100 plus. Like, there's a lot of interesting like things in our history that would be interesting to see implemented in hat designs. Like the book I'm reading right now, Leviathan, is on the American whaling industry. And imagine yourself in the early 1700s. You're hunting a whale, and they used to have like 600 feet of rope in the harpoon, and they tie it to the boat, and they'd hit the whale, and the whale would just take them for a ride. It's just insane. Think about like people like it's kind of crazy. Like, be interesting to comment, like to show some of this history and get younger folks interested in it.
Oh yeah. So here's one of the things, and I was gonna let you pick. I have a couple things, and I gotta go back to the card store because I heard they got some things in. This is one of the things that I'm starting a Donaldson collection, but I'm gonna let you choose a couple of these.
The Jackie Robinson cards, Jesus.
Nope, this is just triple threads.
They're saying he might get traded to the Mets now. Did you hear that rumor? The Mets, now that the Carlos Correa thing has happened with the contract issue with his breaking his leg when he was younger that hasn't healed properly. The Mets are talking about doing a crazy trade with the Yankees where they get Josh Donaldson and someone else, like one of their prospects.
Oswaldo Cabrera or bust.
I think they're gonna let the Yankees dump Cap and they're gonna get some top prospect that's not currently on the roster. Like,
I mean, if I'm the Mets and I just spent like 6 billion on all those free agents, I want Oswaldo Cabrera.
like I'd say, I don't think the Yankees would give him up because he's kind of their future.
Okay.
Where they're just like they're getting to get rid of some bad contracts because Josh Donaldson to them is a bad contract because you're paying.
Yeah, that was like the almost the Soto deal. They were like, yeah, we're not taking him. You can have Eric Hosmer, and then Eric Hosmer was like, yeah, I'm not fucking doing that.
The contract he signed with the Cubs is not actually that bad because the Padres are currently paying Hosmer 23.5 million, but the Cubs are only paying him like 100 grand. And he's not the worst second baseman in the MLB. He's kind of like mid tier where he's not.
He's a first. Yeah.
Huh?
Hosmer is a first. Moustakas is released. There's some quality guys still out there.
Zach Greinke's a free agent that no one signed or come to sign yet with, but I believe he's going to retire probably.
Yeah, he definitely he played in Kansas City. He wants to be done.
I don't think he doesn't like playing the big markets. The only teams would be willing to take a chance on him are big markets. He doesn't like being in the spotlight. They when Boston interviewed him a couple of years ago before he went signed with Arizona, he said he'd have to have a couple different anxiety medication before he signed with Boston.
Well, yeah, I mean, just look at Trevor Bauer's antics and then apply that to somebody like him. You remember, what was it? Somebody hit a home run on him. The catcher threw the ball to him and he threw it over the wall.
Trevor Bauer's also been kind of an outlier his entire career. I remember when he was with the Indians, he used to do all these wacky things as pre-workout before the game. From when he was injured, like he'd bring the javelin out and be stretching. I remember me and my buddy went to a Red Sox Indians game, and we were watching him warm up, and he had the security get rid of us from where the bullpen area is.
Yeah, he's such a weird guy. It's kind of funny, but
where we were getting him out of the zone of somewhat just by watching him. The fun thing about Fenway is that the bullpens are like right next to the fans. You can just like hang out and see a pitcher warm up.
yeah,
it's real fun when you hear like if you get there real early and there's not really a crowd there yet. You can hear how fast the pitch is when it hits the glove, when it hits the catcher's glove. It sounds like a cannon.
Oh yeah.
If you have a real flamethrower in the dugout in the bullpen.
I don't know. Like, he's one of those cases where he wasn't found guilty, so it's like, why release him? But you have this amazing staff, and then you let guys walk. Why didn't you let him play?
It's an optics thing with the modern culture that we're in, where you're guilty before proven innocent here.
Well, that's how the rest of the world works. I mean, Deshaun plays. The NFL didn't give a shit.
That hasn't worked out as well as you think because a lot of the games he's been involved with, especially on the road when he plays in Houston, were pretty rough.
I mean, it should have been more like the Astros situation where they just had the pitches thrown at him and shit. He should have had to play like spring training baseball or something. That would have really made him learn.
What I'd like to say about the Astro situation, for example, it's been beaten to death with a dead horse.
No, I'm talking about Deshaun having to step in the batter's box. And
His bell rung because he's a running type quarterback. He gets his bell rung. He's not making the playoffs. He doesn't care because at the end of the day, he's getting paid millions of dollars to do nothing.
360 million to be exact.
Cleveland's a garbage organization because they abandoned a guy who they drafted really high and won them a playoff game because the going got tough and he didn't. They should have done more to mend with Baker Mayfield. That should
I
have
like
been,
Baker too.
that's
That's
been low. Baker with the right staff and the right head coach would have been a decent quarterback, but because he became the Ryan Leaf of our generation purely because he got.
I wouldn't call him the Ryan Leaf.
He at least has a playoff win, but with the expectations he was taken by being taken like second overall, I believe.
Yeah, you know.
Cole never lived up to that. He brought Cleveland, a city that hadn't seen a playoff game in 30 years, back to the playoffs. And not only that, won a playoff game against their rival, the Pittsburgh Steelers. Then you dump on the dude, trade for somebody who's suspended most. Then you expect him to play middleman, and then he said, "Fuck that, I'm out," and left.
I don't blame him. Don't blame him at all.
I have respect. Didn't work out in Carolina, but some team might have the luck and be able to get him in the right situation. He might be decent.
The Rams may need him.
The Rams are an interesting situation because their head coach is probably going to step down at the end of the season. McVay's
That's
already
so weird. He's like 30, has a Super Bowl.
he's a year away from a Super Bowl win. It's just the ownership there that I think is a problem.
Oh yeah, and I forgot to show you Aaron Judge here.
Nice. Although minor league bobblehead. Like I said, it's pretty refreshing to see a player want to spend his entire career with an organization. There's so many guys when the going gets tough, they just
Yeah, I want to take a Sharpie or something and give him the little line. But other than that, I think he's one that I had to add like so bad because I don't have a Judge and we don't have any of the Yankee teams near us. So other than going to Hudson Valley or something,
no, and
that's
then just
the emoji face, Aaron Judge, and right now he's chilling with Carrot.
I just like to say that I'm happy with the Red Sox for once signing someone who's homegrown to a contract.
That had to be the weirdest fucking deal. They let everybody go. Bogarts gone. Barnes gone. And then they let in Kluber and Hosmer.
Trying to do that Rays thing because that's what that GM was brought in to do. Because we're still paying for that 2018 World Series where we blew up the farm to nothing and traded a bunch of guys away who are MLB caliber players. Like a couple players of the White Sox, Michael Kopech has been a pretty solid starter for the White Sox. He was part of that Chris Sale trade. There was a guy that has the Rays. We traded at the deadline to get Nathan Eovaldi from Rays. I forget the exact player, but we gave up quite a few people just to win that championship, and it hasn't worked. We got the goal. We did the Rams thing before the Rams did, where we fucked them picks. We're gonna win the championship, and it worked. But now we're paying the piper, and we're gonna have to suck for a little bit. The Red
Yeah.
Sox have always been able to develop players. It just takes time to rebuild the farm system.
I think they have a pretty solid farm system. Ultimately, the Mets and the Blue Jays, in my humblest opinion, and that's not because I see them the most, I could not believe when they traded Moreno for Dalton Varsho. Like that was a stunner trade in my opinion, and they gave up Lourdes Gurriel, and he's like 32. He was batting just under Mendoza, it seemed, because he was just striking out and grounding out. And Varsho was practically an all-star catcher outfielder.
Well, the Diamondbacks aren't known for their great decision making since 2001.
Now they have two like pretty good catchers. It's kind of weird.
Well, a lot of the moves the Red Sox made were crazy at the trade deadline, like Vasquez going and trading for Mike Reese, who's famous for something we can't talk about.
And I burned you about that.
Like I said, it's gonna be pretty interesting as a Red Sox. It feels like another fourth place team, which as a Red Sox fan, we always used to know back in the day it was like worst case we'll finish third, but we're not gonna finish worse than Baltimore. But Baltimore's actually gotten their shit together.
If there were 5 teams in the AL East, the Red Sox would finish 10th.
No expectation with the starting pitching staff we have and everything like that. It's going to be a rough boys of summer season.
I mean, they gave up D Mountain, but I mean he's on Pittsburgh now, so that kind of makes sense. It's a good place for him.
I think it was a good thing. Ultimately, the players we let walk because signing their contracts when you're not competing for a championship isn't worth it to pay someone a massive contract. You don't want to get in a situation where, like the Angels, where you're paying 3 players massive salaries and still finishing last, almost last in your division. An interesting thing, Shohei Ohtani Mike Trout came out and said that if they are traded, they want to be traded as a package. I don't know who has the assets to get both of them, but
I can tell you it'll be the Yankees.
that would be crazy because they obviously can't keep paying Shohei Ohtani 2-year deals with like 30-40 million a piece. They're finishing in 4th place, and their attendance isn't that great.
Dude, they have worse attendance than the Coliseum. Like,
imagine being the second best player on your team and being the Japanese version of Babe Ruth.
I don't know, man. In my career, I was a 10-time All-Star, 8-time Silver Slugger, and won the Cy Young in half those years.
No, but just like it's just crazy to think about. Like he turned its baseball on its head, and the fact he brought back something that over 100 years ago was pretty common.
I mean, we all do it in Little League. We just weren't good at it.
And the fact that he can not only pitch, he can play outfield and everything else, and DH. Imagine closing a game out and saying, "I'm pulling my right fielder in."
Yeah, we've kind of gone through the scenarios, and I think there's only one solution, and that's trade him to the Yankees.
Yeah, it's going to be very interesting to see what happens with that because it's either Shohei Ohtani's going to walk in 2 years, and you're going to be stuck with Trout's contract, which is massive in itself because he's owed over $500 million.
It was like 400 million at the time.
Essentially, he's owed $500 million for the rest of his career, and he's on that downward climb now, where he's not going to be as good where he was. He's still putting up incredible numbers, but it's like the Albert Pujols situation where you don't want to be stuck with someone once they hit the real downturn.
Well, speaking of downturns, we got to talk about Kenny Galladay real fast. Kenny Galladay to hit his bonuses. And I picked him when you told me to pick him for Thanksgiving. We just need to discuss this. To receive his bonuses for his contract, he needed 78 catches, 30 touchdowns,
Like 1,000 yards, right?
and 1,000 receiving yards.
To be fair, in his career with Detroit on Thanksgiving, he had gone off on Thanksgiving with Detroit in the past for a few touchdowns.
And your points were valid. He just blew it up.
He doesn't fit that Giants offense. That was probably one of the worst signings in NFL in the last 10 years.
And if you've made it this far in this video, just know that I couldn't watch Davis Webb for 3 fucking hours going 3 and out. Like, come on. The dude has never started a game.
Seattle and the Rams are in overtime right now. That's what I keep looking over at.
The Capitals barely squeaked by the Blue Jackets there by a score of 1-0.
The Blue Jackets won in a shootout against somebody last night, didn't they? I watched that. I forget who, but it was like how? Really good.
Merzinglis is looking like he should have been on the All-Star team because he's got to make 50 saves a night.
Well, at your point, like a goaltender like that, where you're pretty common with it because you're a Sabres fan, where you see a guy get shelled 500 times, 500 times a game, and unless you have a player like Rask for the Bruins, they used to let Rask get like 60, 70, 60 saves in a game every game, and he was the caliber goaltender where he could deal with that. The average caliber goaltender can't deal with that. Eventually, one's going to go in. You keep hammering the goaltender, the defense can't get it out of the zone.
And the worst part about that is that like Ryan Miller used to have to put up like 50 something saves a game, mid 40s to 50. And then you have these guys, like when you're playing against the Flames or the Caps, usually they're facing a strong 45 shots.
Well,
and then the flip side was the Sabres were barely putting up 10 shots per period. So anytime, like we had periods where we couldn't get 5 shots. So anytime they'd get a shot, everybody would stand up and start doing like the wave and shit.
I'd say that's always been the case for Buffalo goaltenders for the most part. Even Dominic Hasek, when he's with you guys, had crazy amounts of saves in a game.
Always has.
Where like defense has always been like kind of optional. It is kind of encouraging though. You guys have definitely been showing like more of a rebuild for the first time ever, where you're actually showing fruits of the labor from the trees.
Well, our future is going to be in a guy called Devin Levi, but UPL, whenever he makes a save, they hit him with the Lou because his name is Luukkonen. But
I let the puck in again.
But his Twitter handle now is UPW. Because he don't take no L's.
I think I sent you. It was a Sabres fan. It was a comment he'd made on the thing. It was like Pekka let the puck in again.
Luka lets the puck in again. Yeah.
And I forget the other one. The other one was another one that was pretty funny too.
Yeah. Only UP dubs from now on. No L's.
Like I said, it's gonna be pretty interesting to see what rocks out with the NHL as far as like it's been very exciting to see Detroit be competitive again too, with all the offseason moves they made.
That's going to be the bullshit that stops us. Like Detroit's going to win 1 or 2 games or Ottawa, and then that'll fuck us over.
And then the other crazy thing is the Devils coming out of nowhere with they signed a few vets with their young core. They got Dougie Hamilton and everything like that, and then suddenly they're one of the second best team in the NHL.
Can't always get what you want.
No, it's just exciting to see like these young teams be competitive for once. Like the Lightning and the Bruins are some of the oldest rosters in the NHL. As a Bruins fan, we're at least going to make the playoffs every year. It's very exciting to see these fan bases that haven't had a lot of things to root for. The Devils fans, as far as it, the one year they went to the Cup with Hall was kind of a fluke.
Yeah.
And then after that, before that, it wasn't. They had Marty Brodeur and like Stevens before they were. You had to go all the way back to like the mid 2000s to see a decent team.
That was those guys. Mid
It's just exciting to see like these teams that haven't had a lot to cheer for a long time. Although I could say as a hockey fan, I don't think anybody feels sorry for Detroit because Detroit dominated up until like 2014. Because I think when they lost the playoff streak they had since like the 90s.
They made the playoffs every year, like since I was born up until I was 24, and then now I'm 30. So
No, it's just like crazy to think about. Talking about like.
Can you believe that shit?
It's going to be very interesting to see what happens, and we'll keep you guys updated.
And that was even with them crossing from the west to the east.
They were just the first team that really embodied that Russian, like they brought these Eastern European players over that no one else thought to bring over, and they just dominated because of it.
Yeah, you could.
And I look at Yzerman, who built the Lightning, and now is, I believe, back with Detroit, correct?
Yzerman, yeah, he's Canadian, but
he built the monster that is the Tampa Bay Lightning, and now he's back in Motor City.
And the thing that hurts the most about that is with both expansion teams, they just slayed them. They took their minor league team and just ripped it apart. Tampa would continue to be good as equally as good as those Detroit teams for the last 20.
Well, I'd say it's another crazy thing about this year in hockey was the Kraken suddenly being really. No one thought they finished one of the worst records last year, and suddenly now they're number 3 or number 4 in the Pacific.
Well, I got to tip my cap to Yanni Gourde for that. Yanni was part of the Bolts back-to-back run, and then he got scooped in the expansion draft, and I could tell the look on his face. He was not happy about that.
Well, a lot of players that got scooped up in those drafts, like Ryan Donato from the Bruins, he was an up-and-coming Bruin that was supposed to be a big part to our future. He was going to be the pair for McAvoy, and he got scooped up by the Knights. He didn't really work out. The Knights don't really keep anybody for very long. He had a decent career, a decent couple of years there, but I believe he's now in the Wild, I think. Or no, he's the only player that ever got picked twice in each expansion.
Yeah. Or maybe Tanev was too, I think.
It's just like crazy to think about. Like, it's really interesting to see these former players from your teams that you didn't protect, like, have a career. I think the biggest kicker for the Bruins this year has been that Pavel Zacha trade. It's worked out perfect for both teams. I don't think there was a loser in that trade because they got a very solid center from us who provide that veteran toughness for the young guys, and we got a guy who was a pretty good goal scorer that can pair with Bergeron, Krejci. You can put him on any line, and he's going to produce.
Oh yeah.
Like I said, it's going to be very exciting to watch and see what happens the rest of this NHL season in the NFL. We'll keep you guys updated. We're going to shoot some more videos in the future.
Well, we started talking about NFL, and we wanted to talk about the NFL, and then I got into hockey, and
like I said, we have a video plan that we wanted to release before the not City Edition. What are they called? The reverse retros.
Reverse retro, and then we have alternate.
We're going to review the reverse retros and the Winter Classic jerseys and tell our thoughts on. We're going to do a little version of like keepers and weepers kind of thing with the NHL jerseys and see what, like, we're going to go through the story behind some of them and how they were inspired. Me and John disagree on some of the jerseys. It'll be interesting to see. I'm hoping you guys will tune in for that. I want to do some more jersey content on stuff in our channel a little bit more too.
Yeah, sounds good. I am just about tapped on this, so want
You
to get
say it.
ready for the Bruins, I think here. So
Peace.
peace, love, and caps.